Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of In Lay Terms. I'm your host, Payman Ascari, and today we have Mr. Gilles Bourgeois. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you, Payman.
Gilles, I'm really excited about today. I don't think I've ever worked this hard for an episode. You're I'm going to call you an expert philosopher. I asked you to come on the show, and you sent me a link, just a casual 50-hour philosophy course. So that was like a month ago. We're done that now. You have a whole whack of things that you want to talk about, but before we get to that, you have a fascinating story. Can you tell the audience about where you come from and where you are now?
Yeah, okay. Well, I'm a Canadian, just like most of you are. I'm a farmer's son from Saskatchewan, and I was born and raised on a farm. And when I grew up, I became an engineer. I went to college and got my engineering degree. And from there, I started working for an oil company. Yeah, I'm a petroleum engineer. I started working for Shell, and after a couple of years, I had the opportunity to move to Europe on an expatriate assignment. I moved to Europe and working in the oil industry, and I met this very beautiful Italian woman who seduced me into becoming my partner for life. And very happily, I did so. And since that time, we've traveled all over the world. Yeah, places like Malaysia, Australia. Spent a lot of time in Malaysia, Romania, Denmark, Holland, yeah, and the Netherlands. We spent a lot of time there. We made our family there, our two girls. And now we live here in Italy, very beautiful place here in Italy, in Perugia, very ancient city, sort of built on a mountain. It's as old or older than Rome itself, and it's a very interesting place. Yeah, so I encourage all of my fellow Canadians to make a trip to Italy if you ever have the chance, because it's absolutely my favorite place in all of Europe to visit.
So,
Yeah, so as Payman indicated, well, I don't know if you indicated, but my profession is in engineering. I'm an engineer. I'm not really a philosopher. History and philosophy are hobbies of mine, and these are hobbies that I've developed greatly, especially since I moved here to Italy about 7 years ago. Italy is a huge laboratory of history and philosophy, and you see evidence of everything here. Yeah, and it's just spectacular.
yeah, I'm very excited. So today, our goal is, in addition to you giving a massive primer to the audience as to everything philosophy, we want to try to tie it into what's going wrong in Canada, and specifically, but the world in general.
Yeah, yeah, I know. As a Canadian, I'm very concerned. What's going on in Canada? In Europe here as well too. A lot of serious problems here as well too. But I very much care about what's going on in Canada.
Yeah, these are uncertain times.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Gilles, we prepared a series of slides. Well, it's mostly you prepared them. But let me bring them up and we can get started. So this is what happens when you don't have a budget for a producer.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's amazing how, I think the internet is really key to mitigating the hazards that we're going through. Yeah, because back in the old days, it was impossible to destroy the narratives of our apocalyptic mystics. Today, we can do that. Yeah, and I think that's a
Yeah,
major mitigating factor. Yeah, today, I can meet up with Payman and express some ideas. Yeah, we could share some ideas and opinions, and that wasn't possible not very long time ago.
yeah. The only technology we really had was the telephone.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, that's exactly correct. And another thing too is throughout history, and it is very common throughout history, there are always a lot of apocalyptic death cults. Yeah, and some of them were more powerful than others. I'm sure you probably remember just a few years ago when there was a comet. I remember there was a comet. I forget what it was called, but there was all these crazies going about saying, "Oh, it's the end of the world," blah blah blah. And I mean, stuff like that was always very very common. and it was exactly that sort of thing, yeah, that took down the Roman Empire. And it's sort of the same thing now, but I think we have a better fighting chance than they had when the Roman Empire was decaying and failing.
I before we get started, I've been thinking about this. I'm going through my childhood and all of the you know the catastrophes they tried to scare us with. Global
Mm-hmm.
cooling, global warming, now it's climate change, the hole in the ozone layer, killer bees, desertification,
See,
famine, meteor. Like it's always
yeah,
one thing
that's
after another.
100%. Were you a child? Were you around during the 1970s?
No, 1980s is as far
1980, yeah.
back as I remember.
Yeah, during the 1970s, it was ice age is coming. Yeah, man-made ice age. And at the time, it was very depressing for me. At the time, I lost my father, a very good father, and I was sort of lost. All of this narrative, yeah, it really brought me down. Yeah, it was very dangerous for me, and somehow I pulled through. Yeah, I had a great family, a great mother, great brothers. Somehow I pulled through. Yeah, but I just can't imagine what kids are going through today. It's absolutely nuts.
Yeah. Gilles, can you see my screen?
Yes, I can.
All right. Well, let's get this started. I'll tee up the questions and then I'll go to the next slide and I'll let you educate the audience. So,
Okay.
question one. I thought we start with a really basic one. Give us a comparison of and contrast of Plato and Aristotle, please.
Yeah, so I mean, we're going to be talking a lot about Plato and Aristotle. These two figures are without question the most influential figures in all of the history, especially of Western civilization. Um, the Greek civilization is the foundation of all of Western civilization. Plato, I mean, there's a lot of Greek philosophers, but Plato dominates. Uh, Tragically, in a negative sense, not that he was an evil person, but he was mistaken, and it's very tragic. And then there's a student of Plato, which is Aristotle, and he's kind of the hero of the whole story. So anything and everything that was achieved, that was good in the history of Western civilization, is a result of Aristotle's ideas. Basically, his method of thought. The difference between Plato and Aristotle is one about between mysticism and reason. Yeah, and so mysticism is all about what to think. Yeah, well, what's the content? What should you believe? You know, and while reason is more about method. What practice do you do to think? Yeah, what's important? How do you validate certain concepts? Okay? So Aristotle is about method, while Plato was about content, dogma. So that's basically, and that framing, yeah, that context basically frames the whole history of Western civilization. All the conflicts, all the wars, all the stupidity, all the massacre, all the Holocaust, everything. It's all because of this conflict between mysticism and reason. Yeah, and in all parts of history where reason reigned, yeah, there was human flourishing, there was progress, happiness, yeah. And where mysticism reigned, then you had conflict and disaster. Yeah, the worst disasters imaginable. So that's basically what we're talking about here. The difference, the distinction between reason and mysticism. And it's all based on Plato's ideas versus Aristotle's ideas. And today, yeah, we have this added complication. Yeah, we have this left wing and the right wing. Yeah, and I call them both wacky left wing and wacky right wing. Yeah, and both of these are tribalists. Yeah, so basically tribes of people, groups at war with one another. Yeah, and that's all because of Platonic mysticism. Yeah, so back in Plato's day, he and his master Socrates were confronted by what were called the sophists. Yeah. So the source of sophistry. We'll talk a little bit about sophistry. Sophistry is a type of a lie. They were confronted by the sophists, yeah, and the sophists are characterized, they're group thinkers, yeah, they're tribalists, they're group thinkers, they're whim worshipping, yeah, very. hedonistic, and moon worshipping nihilists. They kill for the sake of killing. The hatred of the gift of the most worst possible evil imaginable. And and both Plato and Socrates, essentially they tried, but they failed to defeat these nihilists, or these sophists. Yeah, and as a result, these sophists, they voted to the death sentence upon Socrates. Yeah, and Socrates was put to death. Yeah, because of this. And I mean, and this affected Plato, and I think it basically over time turned him into a pretty evil guy as he got older. When he published his his book on politics, the Republic, there's clear evidence that he's sort of gone over the edge. Yeah, and when we talk about communism, yeah, I'll maybe provide some quotes from that treatise on politics. And it's clear that that he's the root of modern day communism. Yeah. So here, I try to make a distinction here between reason and mysticism. Sometimes you'll hear a lot of religious people say, "Well, communists are atheists." Yeah, and it's because of atheism that they're. But that's not quite right, actually. Communism is a mysticism. Yeah, it's wholly based on Plato. Yeah, and as we go a little bit further, you'll see why it's based on Plato's mysticism. And so today, yeah, we sort of have to suffer this wacky left wing. Yeah, so like Canada's Liberals, for example, is a great example. Same with American Democrats. And then you also have the wacky right wing. Yeah, so I'd say the evangelists, and there's conservatives out there that basically want to take us back to the 12th century, essentially, and to establish a religious theocracy. So that's the kind of thing that we're confronting today. Yeah. So
Interesting.
yeah. So I think we can go on to the next slide.
Yes, sir.
Because the rest is sort of self-explanatory. Yeah. So I mean, and one of the points I want to make here is that Western civilization was dominated by theocratic feudalism, yeah, for 18 centuries, right up until America's Revolution, yeah, in 1776. So basically, right up to that time, all of Europe, also the colonies, yeah, Canada included, was ruled by a monarchy. And if you go back before the Renaissance era, yeah, you had a whole theocracy there that financed itself by selling indulgences to people. Yeah, so people would pay them so they could be forgiven for their sins, or to get less time in purgatory, or less punishment from God. Yeah, so basically they were guilt tripping everybody max, basically enslaving them with undeserved guilt. Yeah, and that's basically how it worked. The selling of indulgences, and that was the thing. Yeah, so and this monument here, here in Italy, it's in Perugia. Yeah, this was built just a few years after the passing of Saint Thomas Aquinas. Yeah, and Thomas Aquinas is a key figure here because he successfully managed to incorporate some Aristotelian ideas into the Catholic theocracy of the time. Yeah, especially Aristotle's epistemology. And epistemology is a big word here, but I want people to get used to hearing it. Epistemology is the theory of knowledge. It's a branch of philosophy that describes how we know. Yeah, what methods do we use to know what is real and what is valid, what isn't? What's the nature of the universe and what's not? So epistemology is a very, very important topic here, because it's in epistemology that the wacky left wing, yeah, the sophistry attacks. Yeah, so basically what we see here is this fountain, this Fontana Maggiore, and it sort of shows the two levels. Yeah, so on the top you have the monarchs and the priests and the bureaucrats, and on the bottom you have all of the producers, all the people that produce stuff. Yeah, and basically what this represents is this epistemology of faith. Yeah, so faith with your leaders. Yeah, sort of like experiencing today with Justin Trudeau or whatever. Yeah, the dear leader. Yeah, you have to obey what he says, type of thing. But in medieval times, this epistemology of faith, and that ruled everything and everybody. And if you didn't believe a certain way, yeah, you were accused of heresy and you were basically tortured to death. Here, where I am, not far away, just a few minutes away, I can go to an old torture chamber where they torture people to death for being heretics. Yeah, and all of this, yeah, this whole, and I mean, I think a lot of people are aware now of the two-tiered rules for me, but not for thee kind of society, So like how are all our government bureaucrats are committing, so many crimes and corruption with no accountability. Well, if you say the wrong thing, you'll get censored and fined or maybe even put in jail. And basically this is where this two-tiered society comes from. That's from Plato's uh, metaphysical ideas. So that's really the point here. This basically concretizes the effect of Plato's philosophy upon Western civilization. Yeah. And this is the older form of communism.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, go ahead.
I guess I had two questions. One question. Now it's two. What is theocratic feudalism, and how is this, whatever this is, an older form of communism?
Yeah, so I mean, well, theocratic feudalism is basically a feudal system. Yeah, so a kingdom ruled by a king. Yeah, and he rules by absolute decree, and he does all of this with the blessing of the Pope. Yeah, so it's a theocratic feudalism. Yeah, so that's basically what it is. And how is this older communism? Well, basically, all the people are peons. Yeah, they're all equal. Yeah, they're all peons, and they exist to serve the dear leader. Yeah, to serve the king. Yeah, and to obey his commands and to sacrifice themselves or sacrifice others, i.e., like go to war. Yeah, in service of the king. So that's what I mean by theocratic feudalism and how this is an older form of communism. Yeah, and what the difference, the main difference between the older form of communism and the newer form of communism is again in the epistemology. Yeah, so in those days it was an epistemology of faith. Yeah, you believed in the dear leader. While in modern communism, it's an epistemology of groupthink, of consensus science. We've heard that before. Yeah? So again, it's a short circuiting of thinking for yourself. You have to just believe, yeah, what the group says, or to believe what the dear leader says. Yeah. So they're just two different forms of short circuiting your own mind, of destroying your own mind to think for yourself. Now that's basically the only difference between the old communism and the new communism. Yeah, is that clear?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, I think we can go to the next slide now. I think I got the point across from this slide.
All right, it's my turn. So, on the online course that I did, thanks again for that. There's one quote the guy said, whenever and to whatever extent Platonism was dominant, the results on earth were mysticism, regression, brutality, suffering. Whenever and to the extent that Aristotelianism was dominant, the results were reason, progress, freedom, human happiness. So the question I put forth is, how do Aristotle and Plato fit into the development of the West, America, and conversely, socialism?
Yeah. 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 Okay. So so this basically summarizes, yeah, I'd say, yeah, so roughly 1800 years of history. Yeah. In one slide. Yeah. Yeah. So basically, America itself, yeah, is a republican form of government. Yeah. And it closely models what the Roman Republic was before it became an empire. Yeah? So in the centuries BC, when they basically won over Carthage, yeah, major battle between the Carthaginians and the Romans. When the Romans beat the Carthage, they basically established a Roman Republic, yeah, with a separation of powers, Yeah, so a separation between the consul, yeah, or what later became the emperor, the consul. What did they call again? The Senate. Yeah, there was a Senate, and I forget what they call the lower house. Yeah, so it'd be essentially the same thing as today's Congress. You know? So they had a separation of powers, and they didn't quite have rights, but they had the rule of law. The idea of the rule of law, and that's basically what republic means. Yeah, and the Americans basically attempted to emulate that with some lessons learned, essentially. And if you read the Declaration of Independence, yeah, you'll read, yeah, that there's self-evident truths. Yeah, that men are created equal and they all have the rights to life, liberty, property, in the pursuit of happiness. Well, these self-evident truths aren't really that self-evident after all, yeah, because you have to go through a lot of research and effort, yeah, to figure out that there are these rights and that these are correct, and that these are real. And you learn it from all of this history, yeah, from Greek civilization and the development of the Roman Republic, and then its decay into the empire, into its failure, yeah, and then good 1,000 years of dark ages, and then the rediscovery of Aristotle, yeah? And then this rediscovery of Aristotle, ironically, yeah, is because of Muslim, not Muslims, but I prefer to say Arabs and Persians of the time, yeah, who had rediscovered Aristotle in the ruins. I think somewhere in Syria, some city in Syria, I forget which one. Yeah, and basically the Arabs and Persians at the time they flourished for a significant period, yeah, for good 7 centuries. They were the culturally advanced societies, yeah. Places like Baghdad, and other places in the Middle East, yeah, were major centers of commerce and of science and of advancement, yeah. And a lot of these ideas came over to the West, yeah, into the failed empire. And the Muslims basically, yeah, they were Muslims, but they're not quite as devout as they were to become. But when the Muslims came to the West, yeah, and they basically took over all of Spain and parts of South Sicily, all of Sicily and parts of southern Italy and everything, yeah. But and then and if you go to Spain, especially in Seville, you'll see some beautiful. Well, I don't know if they're mosques, but these beautiful Muslim structures. Yeah, Moorish is the word I'm looking for. And at that time, they even had lit streets, and it was quite amazing actually what they accomplished. Yeah, and yeah, and it was because of that that the Christians, yeah, living in Rome, yeah, they sort of noticed that, and that's they started becoming a bit more curious. Yeah, and a German friar, his name was Albertus Magnus, basically started learning about Aristotle and translating Aristotelian doctrine from Arabic into Latin. And Magnus was the master of St. Thomas Aquinas. Yeah, and Aquinas basically learned all of it. And Aquinas even is credited with even improving upon some of Aristotle's ideas about epistemology, the theory of knowledge. And Aquinas, yeah, I'm sure it must have been a great risk for him, but somehow he managed to convince the people in the Catholic clergy to adopt some of these ideas about knowledge, how to understand the universe. You know? And there's a whole lecture on that history of philosophy course, yeah, about Saint Thomas Aquinas. Yeah, you can go and get into more detail. But the bottom line is that Thomism got established in the 13th century, yeah, here in Italy, and that monument that we just looked at a little bit earlier, yeah, with the two layers, yeah, that basically marks the embryo of the Renaissance. Yeah, so everything in Europe started to change for the very much better. Yeah, you had these great creation of artworks and cathedrals and the development of science. Yeah, you had Galileo, Copernicus, and then Galileo, and things really started to progress in a very important way. Yeah, and that's the Renaissance. Yeah. Yeah, so when we talk about, sometimes we might talk about fundamental Christianity, and then I'll talk about maybe Thomist Christianity. So basically, that's between before the 13th century and then after the 13th century, when Aristotle affected Christianity. So that's basically the point of this slide. Yeah, it's kind of a summary of how the self-evident truths are not very self-evident. Yeah, they took a hell of a lot of effort to find, to discover, yeah, to make known. Yeah, and yeah, and it's not something to take for granted at all. Yeah, this is the most crucial discovery in all of human history. Yeah, this discovery of individual rights. Yeah, they serve as the bridge between morality and politics. You know? Yeah, and the significant complication here is that um, principles of truth and principles of morality, yeah, are absolutely essential, and they're inescapably tied to politics. Yeah, and it's because they're inescapably tied to politics that there had to be a separation of church and state. Yeah, because the church um, doesn't preach correct principles of truth and morality. They actually preach mysticism and human sacrifice. And it's becoming increasingly clear to me now that that's what the Enlightenment thinkers and the American fathers figured out. Yeah? Because they were careful to not quote biblical scripture, but also careful not to insult it either. Yeah, they were in a kind of a difficult situation, especially the American founders, because they needed to acquire popular support for their revolution. Yeah? And pretty well all people back then were pretty devout Christians. Yeah, and they had to give the impression that what they were doing was morally correct. Yeah, so they had to be a bit careful, but while being honest at the same time. Does that sort of make
Interesting.
sense?
Yeah, I never heard that. That last part was really fascinating.
Yeah, yeah. Nowhere in the Bible does it say that you as an individual have the rights to life, to liberty, to property, and the pursuit of happiness. It doesn't. There's nowhere at all in. Yeah, not at all in the Bible as it is. Yeah, your purpose is to exist for the sake of others. Yeah, to sacrifice for the sake of others, and to exist for the day that you die so that you go to heaven. Yeah, yeah. So to not be worried about your life here on earth. Yeah. Well, this concept of rights, yeah, what's written in the American Bill of Rights is a total opposite. Yeah, to be concerned about your life here on earth, yeah? And to seek happiness and property, and to defend yourself. Yeah, to have the right to defend yourself and your property. Yeah. So that's basically the essential point of this slide here. How uh, profound this concept of rights is, yeah, and how Thomism is part of was a substantial part of Christianity, yeah, and how it led to this discovery of individual rights. Or another way of putting it is the secular discovery, a valid secular discovery of the theory of rights, of morality, I should say, of morality.
Gilles, I'm just going to recap for the audience.
Yeah.
Uh, Thomism is named after Thomas Aquinas,
Yes.
and it reflects the incorporation of Aristotelian or Aristotle's views into Catholicism.
Well, especially the epistemology, and not so much Aristotelian ethics or metaphysics, yeah, but metaphysics quasi, because Aristotle sort of believed in the unmoved mover, yeah, sort of equivalent to a god, yeah. So you'll see a lot of religious people say, well, yeah, Aristotle believed in a god, but in reality he really didn't, but he had to because for logical reasons, yeah. But this was 2,400 years ago. But really, it was in the epistemology and the theory of knowledge. That's what's really important, how we know things. Yeah, and it's something that the Catholic Church and the Protestant Church as well too had great difficulties with. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you're familiar with the story of Galileo. Yeah, are you familiar with Galileo?
Yeah. He got tried by the church for saying that the Earth was not the center of the universe.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
basically propagating Copernicus's ideas. Yeah. And then there was others, yeah, other religious persecutions as well too. Yeah, so it didn't come easy, but it came anyways. Yeah, and it provoked the Renaissance, this amazing flourishing of art, and I mean, and then the church sort of took advantage of that. Yeah, because aesthetics. Yeah, so what I call it aesthetics. Yeah, that's another branch of philosophy. Basically, artwork. Yeah, soul fuel. Yeah, things that are beautiful to look at, to listen to watch, yeah, to entertain yourself. Yeah, this was something that the church took over in a big way because it lured people in, yeah, and it lured more obedience. Yeah, and so you had these beautiful cathedrals, beautiful artworks, and everything, all sponsored by the church. Yeah, and then kind of a smart thing to do in a way, yeah, because that's how you get people to be loyal to you. Yeah,
All right. Should we go on to the next slide?
yeah, yeah, sure.
The next one is relevant as well.
Yeah, yeah. So in this slide, I basically I summarize both the Platonic and Aristotelian philosophies. Yeah. So, but it's very much summarized. Yeah. So on the left, I mentioned Saint Augustine. Yeah. So Saint Augustine was a very early Christian. Yeah, and he established the first ever Christian philosophy. I mean, he's very important. Um, and in red, where I show there is I show what I indicate what later German philosophers did. And so they took Augustine and they radicalized it even further, yeah, to create modern day collectivism, or what people mostly know as either communism or fascism. Yeah? We'll talk about collectivism a little bit later. Yeah, so basically on the left here, you have this ancient Platonic doctrine, yeah, originally created by Saint Augustine and then radicalized by German philosophers like Kant, Hegel, and Karl Marx. And then on the right hand side, you have a summary of Aristotle's influence upon Christianity, how he changed Christianity somewhat in those three main philosophical categories. Yeah? So the metaphysics, so basically what's the nature of the universe. Then there's epistemology, the theory of knowledge. Yeah? How do we know that this is the nature of the universe? And then there's ethics or morality. Yeah? What do you do? What do you choose? What should you choose to do? And basically this slide here goes into a bit of detail to contrast the Platonic versus Aristotelian philosophy, yeah, and how America is explicitly this Aristotelian side of this philosophy. Why it's so different from anything and everything else in all of history, and even to the present day. And also, yeah, now also just to make the point that this, what makes communism the same thing as fascism is this concept of collectivism. Yeah? And this collectivism is all created by this philosophical method that's summarized on the left hand side there. You know? You have Karl Marx on the bottom, and then you have a famous quote by Harry Hazlitt, a famous economist, about how the proper way to cure poverty and how to create human progress and human flourishing. Any questions?
Yeah, we're going to cover this later on, but I'm just going to ask this right now. Is there a difference between communism and fascism, or is it just what the clothes they wear?
It's just because of the clothes they wear is pretty good answer, to be honest. Yeah, there's not a huge amount of difference. Basically, in communism, yeah, the government owns all means of production. Yeah, so basically, all there is workers. The government owns everything and directs everything. In fascism, you still have property rights, but the government controls everything. So it's sort of like what we're in today. Yeah, the government, you have regulations for everything. You can barely do anything without having to get permission from the government. Yeah, you have to get, there's minimum wage laws, there's all kinds of laws. Yeah? There's hardly any freedom anymore. Yeah. Yeah. So the main difference between communism and fascism, yeah, is that in communism nobody owns anything, the government owns everything. Yeah, and in fascism, there's still some private property, but the government controls everything. So they might as well own it as well too. That's the only difference. And that when why and why fascism is the same is essentially communism, but for an advanced middle class society, is because in an advanced middle class society, there are property rights. Yeah, there's lots and lots of people that own property, and they need to be controlled. Yeah, and that's basically what you do. Yeah, you create a nanny welfare state. Yeah, and you continue to grow that state while more and more people become more dependent. Not only people, but corporations as well too become dependent on the government and its regulations and its subsidies. Yeah, and the government control just grows until you have outright fascism.
Yeah, it's a scary thought, but Canada's
Indeed,
is very
but it's good
close
to
to
be
that.
scared of this. Yeah,
Hmm.
it's good to be scared of this.
Should we continue on?
Sure.
These are some. We can. I'll just read these out, and we can maybe you already answered them. So
Yeah.
these are things you said to me. America's Constitution was derived from Aristotelian doctrine, a doctrine that used to be a major influence to all of Western, not Eastern Christendom. With the absence of Aristotelian influences, Easterners became more vulnerable to communism. Likewise is the case for Orientals and all the others.
Yeah.
Maybe quickly explain what an Oriental is, and also I still don't fully understand how is it that the East was more susceptible than the
Yeah.
West.
Well, okay, because without Aristotelianism, yeah, all you have is mysticism. Yeah, you're basically unmoored from reality. Yeah, so all of your principles about truth and morality, yeah, so epistemology and ethics is all completely based on mysticism, on subjective ideas. Yeah, what dear leader thinks and feels. Yeah, not on any reason, not on any facts, not on any logic. Yeah, so basically, when everything is based on mysticism, yeah, might makes right. Yeah, the strong man wins. Yeah, the most vicious guy with the most vicious weapons, intending to do the most vicious things. Yeah, it becomes the king. Yeah, and that basically is what happened. And I mean, if you look at the Eastern European countries, yeah, during the 19th century, they were a lot of them flourished. Yeah, a lot of them, Russia and places like Romania, Poland. Yeah, a lot of these places flourished quite a bit during the 19th century. Yeah, so they had the benefit of the Enlightenment, but because they never were raised or presented with ideas that are grounded in physical reality, yeah, they remain vulnerable to these mystical ideas, vulnerable, yeah, and basically that basically explains it all. Yeah, much easier to goad them into totalitarianism than it was in the West. Yeah, because in the West, especially during the 19th century, the Aristotelian idea, although they were being affected, they weren't dead yet. Yeah, they weren't dead yet.
Um, Sorry, I wanted to tighten up some of the language. When we say epistemology, that's like if if I slap my hands together and the birds get startled and they fly away, logic dictates that, when you make a loud noise, animals get startled. But then a mysticist would come in and say there's a mystical realm out there somewhere with a bird god, and when you do wrong, the bird god tells his bird followers to fly
Yeah,
away.
so basically, all mysticism is very deterministic. Yeah, so basically that means that everything that you do is controlled by something else. You have no free will. You didn't choose to clap your hand and scare the birds away. Yeah, it was some impulse from another dimension. Yeah? That's what a mystic would say. Yeah, that you didn't have the power to choose to clap your hand or not. And epistemology is a whole branch of philosophy that deals with the whole topic of knowledge, yeah, how we know things. Yeah, and it's a pretty big topic. Yeah, but I made a couple attempts to try to summarize it, but it's not it's a pretty big topic. Yeah, ethics is a lot easier to summarize. But epistemology, you have deduction. Yeah, so like you say, you cause and effect deduction. Then you also have induction. Yeah? So how we accumulate particular things together to derive a general principle. Yeah, and that's a really big topic as well about epistemology. Yeah, so epistemology is about Yeah, the theory of how we know things, making use of our senses. Yeah, our sight, hearing, sound, everything, and integrating and making use of your own mind to integrate what you experience with what you know, yeah, to come up with knowledge. Yeah, either knowledge of what's going on, or knowledge of certain principles that you can apply so that you can deal with certain problems. Yeah, such as climate change. Uh, yeah, so it's a big topic, but like, people need to be able to say the word and know what it means and start talking about it. But what does epistemology mean? Because it's exactly this that the, what I call the wacky left wing, or the sophists are attacking. Yeah, with their sophistry. Yeah, the attacks are means of knowing what the heck is going on. Yeah, and they do
Uh,
this
fo-
by corrupting our news media or internet media, controlling what we think or what we see and what we say. So I mean, it's deeply, deeply corrupting.
so you see a parallel between uh, the abandonment of Aristotelian values or epistemology and the mainstream media just lying to everybody.
Yes, yes, exactly. Yeah. So I don't know if you went through that. It's a real torture session. Yeah, in that history of philosophy, but there's three or four, maybe five lectures about Immanuel Kant. Did you go through those?
I went through every single one, but like I said, I remember the juicy parts the most.
Yeah. Well, the ones about Immanuel Kant is the worst of the worst. Well, the most difficult and the most bizarre, mind-bending stuff. Yeah. But Dr. Leonard Peacock, yeah, he's also a Canadian. He's originally Canadian. He's the master of all of this stuff. Yeah. But basically, what we're experiencing right now is this Kantian universe. Yeah. So the fake world, yeah, being projected to us through our news media and internet media. Yeah, and you have to interpret all of it very carefully now. Yeah? So that's why I'd like to push this word epistemology, get used to what it means, try to learn more about it. And there's a whole, excuse me, there's a whole heck written and videoed about it in at the Ayn Rand Institute. I mean, they're the true authorities about epistemology.
Should we continue on?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, there you go. There's a relevant slide for you.
Yeah, so in this slide, so people can just read it to themselves. But basically, it just summarizes, I think, one of Aristotle's most important discoveries. Yeah, so the law of identity. Yeah, and basically, what the law of identity means is that physical reality is our objective absolute from which we validate any and all of our concepts. Yeah, and by concepts, I mean things like gender, for example. Yeah, and I think a lot of us are, yeah. Gender. Another one is morality. Yeah, that's probably the most important one. Yeah, and I think another important concept is thermodynamics. Yeah, it's something I'm pretty intimate with because as an engineer, I'm an expert at applying thermodynamic principles, and the whole greenhouse effect is a total violation of these thermodynamics principles. Yeah? So I tell you, and I'm 100% certain about this, yeah, that the greenhouse effect, as it's being uh, disseminated to the world, is a lie. It's a religious dogma. It's not real. Climate change is real, yeah, but so are totalitarian death cults. And totalitarian death cults create religions to indoctrinate people, yeah, into obedience and servitude. Yeah, and then basically that's what it's all about. And the antidote to all this, yeah, is this Aristotelian law of identity. And it's through this law of identity that Enlightenment thinkers, together with America's founding fathers, came up with the concept of rights. So you have the American Declaration of Independence and the Bill of Rights. Yeah, and then when the British Empire lost the Revolutionary War, they sort of became enlightened because the Americans won because of what were originally British ideas. Yeah, this classical liberalism was created in Britain, in Great Britain. And after the Americans won the Revolutionary War, the British became, yeah, they became winners themselves too. Yeah, they realized, holy shit, yeah, this stuff makes a lot of sense. So they outlawed in their own jurisdiction. They outlawed slavery. Yeah, decades and decades before the Americans ever did. Yeah. And they didn't even have to fire a bullet. Yeah, they outlawed slavery in their own jurisdiction, and on top of that, they mobilized their military. Yeah, the British Empire mobilized their military. They went over to Africa and they did all that they could to eliminate slavery everywhere in the world that they could. Yeah, and then they also paid huge amounts. I forget the number, but they paid a huge. Uh, what's the word again when you pay for slavery? Restitution.
Reparations.
Huh?
Reparations.
Reparation. Yeah, they paid a huge right. Yeah, yeah. So all of this bullshit you hear about, British colonialism and all this stuff, it's such a terrible lie. Yeah, I mean that, it's sophistry. They use half truths. Yeah, sure, the colonization had, some terrible things about it. Yeah, but it changed itself. Yeah, in a very fundamental way. Yeah, making anything and everything good today is all because of this. Yeah, because of this discovery of rights, and the Enlightenment. Yeah, and the British are, together with the Americans. Yeah, are truly, yeah, the heroes of our day. Yeah? And all of us that participated. Canada is what it is, or I should say what it was. Yeah, because of the Charter of Rights, which I include there. It belongs there. It needs some amendments. The basic idea is there, yeah, especially the Section 2. Yeah, it's essentially the same as the American First Amendment. So, yeah, so I would encourage people to go through this slide, read what's written there. It's just a few words. It's not very long. But to understand what this law of identity is, and to recognize how this law of identity is being violated today, here and now. Yeah. A great example is this this gender stuff that we're doing right now, denying that girls are girls and boys are boys. These horrific things. Yeah.
Gilles,
Yeah.
Aristotle's law of identity, is that the what is?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember funny.
Is yeah, and what is not is not. And then there's a whole
I
lot of excluded middle, but it gets more complicated. But learn about the law of identity. You can do your own research and find out a little bit more about it. But essentially, what it means is that physical reality is our objective absolute, in which we test and validate any of our concepts. Yeah, so
I was laughing because
our conceptual ability with physical reality. Yeah, yeah. So and nowadays, you have this company. You've got these Platonists, yeah, so people that have the pie in the sky visions. Then you have these, I guess you could call them collective communists. Yeah, a lot of them are materialists. Yeah, concepts. You don't have a mind. You don't think. All that matters is physical reality. Yeah, so you get these two extremes, and they're both wrong. Yeah, so I mean, so basically, this law of identity is about integrating concepts that we have in our mind, understanding, knowledge, with physical reality, validating with physical reality. Yeah. That's basically what characterized a lot of the 19th century and the progress of the Industrial Revolution. And it is this particular thing that's being attacked right now. It could potentially destroy us.
and I think there's another slide after this one.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So here I summarize essentially what classical liberalism was, or what it accomplished. Yeah, and I want to be careful here because uh, I don't think classical liberalism was the perfect idea, but it was certainly on the right track. Yeah, similar to what Aristotle was. He wasn't perfect, but he was on the right track. Yeah, and basically, yeah, and basically what it means is that rights make might. Yeah, basically it prioritizes the individual, the rights respecting individual as the sovereign unit of value. Yeah, so if you understand the laws, yeah, they shouldn't be very complicated. But if you understand your rights and you respect the rights of others, yeah, you sort of become the sovereign. Sort of like the king, but you can't command others. But you're the king of yourself. Yeah, nobody can tell you what you should or should not value. And that's basically what the American Revolution was actually about. Yeah, and it was, it's a demonstration the power of discovering a proper morality, proper moral code. Yeah, so and you ended up, with basically a band of farmers and a couple of businessmen. Yeah, managed to get themselves together, and they defeated a major superpower. Yeah, just because they discovered a proper morality, a code of values. Yeah, that prioritizes the rights respecting individual as a sovereign unit of value. And that basically, and that victory, yeah, created an unprecedented degree of human flourishing. And this is something that needs to be discussed, especially now, yeah, because the country of Israel, for example, I mentioned how this is related to what's going on in Israel. Israel, like the United States was in 1776, in 1947, I think that's right, was the first country, the first jurisdiction in the Middle East, yeah, to be a rights-respecting state. Yeah, and in spite of the fanatical slave regimes and their surroundings, yeah, the Israelis were largely successful in making a rights-respecting jurisdiction. Yeah? In Israel today, nearly a quarter of the population are Muslim. Yeah, they live there. They don't. There's no what do they call it? Apartheid. There's 20 million Muslim people there that live there, and they want to live there. Yeah, and a significant number of them are in the IDF, officers in the IDF. Yeah, so I think it's worth mentioning that, taken to the context, given the kind of conflict that's going on over there. They're basically fighting a fanatical totalitarian death cult. In the Middle East, it's Islam. Yeah. Tragically, the Muslims abandoned Aristotle. Yeah, they're credited for discovering him, and tragically, they abandoned him. And here in the West, yeah, we have our own new kind of religion, and it's called the greenhouse effect. I prefer to call it the flat Earth and cold sun religion. Yeah, and some other day we'll go through why that is so. Yeah, but the greenhouse effect is basically a flat Earth and cold sun religion. It believes that the Earth is flat and that the sun is cold, and that's basically what we're doing right now with religion. And that's what totalitarianism needs. Yeah, is to stupefy people with these ridiculous dogmas. Yeah, and that's what we're struggling against.
Gilles, I love your use of language. I think for the last few weeks, I've been walking around giggling at the wacky whim worshipping cultists.
Yeah, well, I'm still a Saskatchewan boy, and I have to be careful with my language. Yeah.
All right, I'll go on to the next one. I think we kind of covered this, but fascism is communism, but with the middle class. So I'll skip over that.
Yeah, I think we can. I mean, I think most people are where the Germany and Italy have both. The only difference between Germany and Italy is one was more Protestant and the other was more Catholic. But they're both very advanced societies, very culturally advanced societies with a lot of very intelligent people. Yet somehow, they both corrupted themselves through the stupidity of fascism. I think we all have the same vulnerability. And that vulnerability is brought up by this idea of, again, because of epistemology, this idea that you gain knowledge by groupthink, by consensus, by democracy. Okay? The reality is knowledge is acquired by making use of your own senses, your own mind, and rejecting any and all contradictions, risking making errors and having to correct them. Never ever take things just on faith nor by consensus. I think it's one of the main lessons here. This thing about epistemology, this theory of knowledge. You can only know things for yourself. You can't know knowledge from other people. You can learn things from other people. You will get something that makes sense. Other knowledge.
I like how you phrased that. You sort of said it was a false epistemology, that people think that you only learn things through democracy.
Yes. Yeah. democracy, and I hear it all, especially in America, uh, you know, democracy that's not subverted to individual rights, yeah, is rule of the mob. Yeah, and that's a lot of what we're experiencing now today is rule of the mob. Uh, what matters is individual rights. Yeah, voting, majority vote only applies to the selection of certain personnel. Yeah. It doesn't apply to how a government is governed. The purpose of a government is to protect individual rights, nothing more, nothing less than that. And somehow we have to get these ideas across. That's what was meant by the original 1776 version of America's Constitution. Yeah. It needed some amendments, of course, yeah, to include women and the race rights and all that stuff. But that was the original discovery, yeah, that the individual is the sovereign unit of value. He has rights, yeah, and the purpose of government is to protect those rights, as stated, yeah. And the purpose of the Constitution is to define exactly what the government is allowed to do. That's it.
I agree with you 100%. But
Yeah.
let's
But
move on.
this change for the better, it can't come from the top down. It has to come from the bottom up. Yeah. So you and me having this discussion and you showing it to your audience, that is a very good way of bringing change, positive change from the bottom up. And that's basically what I need to accomplish as an objective is to disseminate these ideas and help bring them from the bottom up. It'll never happen from the top down.
Agreed. Gilles, I'm going to read this one is kind of important. In the West, Aristotle's ideas had to be delegitimized and taken out of our education, and it thus took more time for the corruption of fundamentalist Abrahamic religion to corrupt our societies, as what occurred in 1900 to 1930s Italy and Germany.
That's right.
You don't have to go into too much detail, but briefly tell us what a fundamentalist Abrahamic religion is, as opposed to a non-fundamentalist one.
So basically, yeah. So what I'm making the distinction here between the Platonic version of Christianity and then that version of Christianity affected by Aristotle, Thomism. So post 13th century, let's say starting 15th or 14th century, when the Renaissance was well underway. Yeah, that was more rational. And then the fundamentalist Abrahamic religions before then, yeah. So the Dark Ages, total theocracy, and where people were being tortured to death, or basically the same thing as modern Islam, essentially. And so, yeah, in the West, people had to to corrupt people's ability to understand reality. So, and basically that's so that's basically delegitimizing the law of identity. Yeah. So what you see with your own eyes, what you hear with your own ears, is not relevant. What's relevant is what the consensus tells you to think. That's essentially what's happening right now. Yeah, it's getting colder because of global warming. Yeah? Have you heard that? Yeah.
Global cooling. Yeah, it's.
Yeah. This is exactly this nonsense. Yeah, and it's basically a war on the law of identity. And the thing about Aristotle's methods, yeah, it's not like you have to be a genius of some kind. Absolutely everybody can apply these methods. Yeah, they're just very simple methods. Yeah, of establishing what you think of an idea with reality. Yeah, I've met people that were handicapped with Down syndrome that were more intelligent with people with PhDs. Yeah, it's yeah. So I mean, this is basically what we're talking about. It's just a method thought, yeah? Especially this method in philosophy. You start with metaphysics, epistemology, and then ethics, and the rest, the politics, and everything else sort of falls out after that. But that's the important part. Reality is real. It's absolute, and there's certain methods, yeah, for us to know it, for epistemology, and then knowing what we know, what should we do, yeah, in order to promote human flourishing.
Gilles, my question was, I was under the impression that you had fundamentalist Abrahamic religions and then you had the Enlightenment. How did we go back to fundamentalist Abrahamic religions in the early 1900s?
Well, we didn't. Well, no, it said that we all went back to fundamentalism, but it's more this. You could say it's sort of a process, yeah. So we are going back to a fun, but it's a different kind of fundamentalism. It's not going back to medieval Christianity, but we are, like the greenhouse effect is a great example of how we're going back to something that's equivalent to Islam. Now. It's basically flat Earth, cold sun religion. Yeah. So I mean, we're going back to religion, but it's a religion that's attempting to destroy science itself, and that's precisely what the greenhouse effect religion is. Yeah. I like to call it the cold sun or the flat Earth cold sun religion, and
Yeah.
it is. It's
We'll
not.
use that as the title of this video.
Yeah, and I mean, I can refer you. There's a great blogger. He's an astrophysicist. Yeah, so he's a PhD astrophysicist. I can send and link. Yeah, Dr. Joe Kotzma, and he does some really excellent work. Explains things really simple for non-scientists. How this is all bullshit. So I'd strongly recommend looking for that up.
Yeah, if you share that with us, we'll put it in the description for the video.
Sure.
Carry on.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So I mean, I think the point here is it's not like we're going back. I mean, there are some old-fashioned conservatives that want to go back to 13th century Christianity, but that's not what's really dominating us. What's dominating us is the fake science, like the greenhouse effect. That's the real big one. Yeah, it's costing us trillions of dollars, and it's chopping up birds and destroying our ecology. Yeah, that's the big one. That's this greenhouse effect. Religion, not a science.
That actually bothers me because I think a very large proportion of the planet is bought into this climate alarmism.
Yes, but but in a way, I'm sort of optimistic because, well, 4 years ago, I was canned from Twitter. Yeah, I'm the so-called climate denier. I was canned from Twitter. And just a couple of months ago, I was reinstated, and I'm finding that the resistance to the religion has grown substantially and is getting better. So, there's a lot of resistance to it as well too. And you got famous people like what's the famous ecologist from BC again?
Patrick Moore.
Yeah, he's doing some really good work and a lot of important PhD, important government scientists as well too. Yeah. So there's a growing movement against it. Yeah, so there's reason to be optimistic, but it's dangerous. Yeah, and just the way to deal with danger is just to be aware of it. Yeah, not to get frozen in panic, but just be aware of it and act accordingly. Do what you can. You have to save yourself and everything else that you hold dear.
So this slide, I think we can skip it. The socialist death cult. We're talking about your flat Earth gold sun guys.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So we sort of basically covered this, but social. Yeah. So I think the big main point is that socialism is immoral. Yeah. There's nothing good about it. It's absolutely immoral. It presents itself. Yeah. It uses altruism. Yeah. Christian altruism. It presents itself as, helping the poor, helping the needy. You got to be compassionate. Yeah. And what it really is a lure, a rat trap. Yeah. You have to lure you into something that will kill you. And it prioritizes the society. It prioritizes society over the individual. Yeah. So they'll gladly sacrifice individuals for the sake of the society. And I mean, just look at the history of Soviet Russia or Nazi Germany. Yeah? I mean, that's basically what you get.
If I can jump in, I think what you just said, the first part of what you said, where it prioritizes it's a trap and it prioritizes the state over the individual. I find that's far more effective than pointing out that socialism's killed like 100 million people over the last few decades, because people don't seem to care when you tell them, you're like, guys, 100 million people died. They're like, oh, well, whatever. We'll get it right this time.
I think you have an excellent point there. Actually, that's something I'm going to incorporate. Actually, I think it's a good idea, good way to say that.
Um, so Gilles, you shared this slide with me. I think I'm gonna shut up and let you go through. This is like my favorite slide of everything you've shared.
Yeah, yeah. So basically, all I'm trying to show here is the source of Karl Marx's ideas, and that they essentially they originate from Plato, yeah, and through into Christianity, early Christianity, yeah. So this fundamentalist Christianity that I mentioned earlier, and pre-Thomism, yeah, of Saint Augustine, and how it actually represents Karl Marx's ideas in a lot of detail. Yeah, and if you read the Acts of the Apostles, you'll see exactly what's written there. Yeah, and so essentially, this is what we're dealing with this multi-headed monster, religious theocracy, the wacky left wing, the wacky right wing, yeah? Some other wackos as well too. Yeah, and the thing is, the common thing among all of these wackos is this false epistemology. Yeah, so this knowledge either by faith or by groupthink that that basically dumbs everybody down if you're not careful. If we're not careful. Yeah, but just being aware of this, yeah, it gives you a machine gun. Yeah, it gives you a bazooka against these totalitarians. And knowing this and disseminating it to others in any way that you can, yeah, is mainly our weapon.
Gilles, can I take a moment to read these three quotes?
Yeah.
I think it's really important. So the first one is Saint Augustine. So this is the Christian one.
Yeah.
The Christians make a common property with their riches with a far more excellent purpose, namely so that they may distribute to each according to his need, in compliance to what is written in the Acts of the Apostles, with no one calling anything his own, and all things being held in common. So that was the Christian perspective. And then there's the famous one from Karl Marx, from each according to his ability, to each according to his need. And then this one from Hitler. I didn't know this one, but I'll try to read it. We are socialists. We are enemies of the capitalistic economic system for the exploitation of the economically weak, with its unfair salaries, with its unseemly overutilization of a human being according to wealth and property instead of responsibility and performance. And we are all determined to destroy these systems under all conditions. There's like you can draw a direct line from Augustine to Marx and then Hitler.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not me, but it's actually I've learned this through the Ayn Rand Institute, going through this whole philosophy course that you went through yourself, and yeah, that's basically what it is. Yeah. So we need to be able to recognize this multi-headed monster and to avoid tribalism and promote individualism. Huh? Yeah, that the individual, that the rights respecting individual is the sovereign unit of value, and do whatever we can to try to stop tribalism in its tracks. Yeah, because it's growing. I mean, we see it now, especially, in America, or especially now, in all the university campuses, with these Hamas supporters and stuff. And also the climate cult. Yeah, the climate cult, yeah, they refer to deniers the same way that the Nazis referred to Jews. I mean, and that's the kind of danger that we're facing today. And just being aware of it in the context that I'm presenting here gives us a bazooka, it gives us a cannon against this monster, an intellectual one.
Gilles, use your expertise and explain to us how Hamas would fit into this model.
Yeah, well, so basically, Hamas is a religious theocracy. Yeah, so it's a religious, it's a political party. Yeah, that has Islam as its founding philosophy, basically. Yeah, and I mean, and then if you read their and somewhere in my files, I've got their covenant. Yeah, which basically calls for the extermination of the Jews. Yeah, from the river to the sea, which you hear chanting all over the place. Yeah, and and just like any other religious theocracy or in communism or in Nazism, you've got to eliminate the unclean, and take total control over everything and everybody.
But how is it that such a massive swath of the public just got brainwashed into supporting these terrorists that killed a
Yeah,
thousand people?
because of what they were learning in college. Yeah, because of our education system. All of our education systems are basically run by the government. Yeah, or government owned and operated program. Yeah, so the government has total control, and they feed these ideas of service to the society. Yeah, that you exist for the sake of everybody else. Yeah. And that you earn knowledge by you acquire knowledge by listening to the experts and by complying to what the consensus tells you says it is. They don't teach anybody anymore how to think for themselves, or that's rapidly going away now.
Okay,
Because
well, what about next question? What about this whole anti-vaxxer thing? Like, how did the society overnight start to vilify these people?
yeah, well, again, it's a form of tribalism again. Yeah, so I mean, during the pandemic, yeah, they were vilifying people that were choosing not to get vaxxed. Yeah, so you start these tribal wars between the vaxxed and the unvaxxed, and then you have this sort of the wacky wet ring who say, oh, they're uh, propagating bioweapons. Yeah, and you start getting these conspiracy theories, and the tribes there and tribes there, and all the tribes basically squabbling with one another. I mean, we sort of got to just say, fuck all of that shit. Yeah. Um, I myself, I was totally against, yeah, but not that there was any convinced conspiracy theories, but just on the basic fact that it's totally wrong. You have to coerce people to take medicine. That's something I knew from my study of history of Nazi Germany. You just don't do that. That's never under any circumstance do you ever do anything like that. That's wrong. But but this whole thing, just generates all the tribalism, man. And I think they're doing it on purpose. Yeah, and it creates a lot of chaos and conflict. And if continues to get worse, yeah, they're going to probably impose an order upon us.
All right. Shield, this is the next slide. If you want to speak to
Yeah,
this, or if
yeah.
you've
So
covered
this
it.
slide, I summarize. Yeah, so I summarize the moral justification for rightism, yeah, or what people mostly know about as capitalism. Yeah. Yeah, so the word capitalism originates from Karl Marx. Yeah, and it's the word that he gave to the socio-economic system of Western civilization that basically promotes freedom, property rights, free markets, free trade, free enterprise, and he created this terrible smear. And to this day, it's very powerful. Yeah, people associate capitalism with the cronies and the bureaucrats. Yeah, I mean that's totally wrong. Yeah, capitalism is about individual rights, where the rights respecting productive individual, is the sovereign unit of value. So your human and your ability to exist as a human is protected by the government. So what I wanted to convey there, and especially written in the green box, yeah, is essentially the objectivist definite or the objectivist justification, moral justification for capitalism.
And rightism, is that a word or is that one you invented?
No, that's a word I invented. Yeah, I like to call it rightism because free markets, free enterprise, but how property rights, free markets, free enterprise, free trade. It's kind of a long word, yeah. But all of it is premised on individual rights. So I like to promote use of the word rightism to eventually replace the Marxist smear capitalism. You know?
Yes.
And so it's all about rights. It's all about these individual rights, yeah. And these rights were discovered by applying Aristotle's law of identity, and especially to validating the concept of morality. So morality being the realm of chosen values, yeah, the values that you choose, not the values that I impose upon you, yeah, under threat of of damnation or fine or jail or something. Yeah? But that's what rights are all about. Yeah, that the individual human being as the sovereign unit of value.
Very well. Should we move
Yeah,
on?
yeah,
Ah, there's another one. Collectivism. Probably we've covered it, but I'm just going to read this. Collectivism means the subjugation of the individual to a group, whether to a religious faith, race, class, or state. Holds that man must be chained to collective action and collective thought for the sake of the common good, the inevitable outcome of a society that becomes mystical and irrational, ultimately resorting to an ethic of human sacrifice for the greater good.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, so basically, yeah. So I talked about this multi-headed monster, the Hydra. It's got a lot of different costumes, a lot of different jackboots, and a lot of different uniforms. Yeah, but it's basically all the same collectivism. Where the individual is insignificant. What matters is the collective. And that's basically what we're confronting today, and it's extremely dangerous. But as well, it is also easily defeatable, yeah, with proper epistemological knowledge and ethical knowledge, yeah, that we're disseminating here tonight. Yeah, yeah. So with this history and philosophy that we've gone through tonight, yeah, all of this will just evaporate away. Yeah, just like in Lord of the Rings when Lord Sauron's ring was thrown in the fire. Yeah, that's basically what can happen. You just have to get these ideas out, yeah, because they're intellectual. They require effort. They require intellectual effort. It's not like an emotion that happens automatically. You sort of have to put effort into it, exactly like you did when you went through that course, yeah. And that really impressed me a lot. So I'm motivated to do anything I need for you to do.
Oh, well, thank you. And thanks for the reference to the course. It was pretty eye-opening.
Mm-hmm.
uh,
Yeah,
all
so
right, we're up.
is the opposite of individualism. Yeah, so we got to sort of get away from this right wing versus left wing tribalism. Yeah, it's actually between collectivism, yeah, as defined here, versus individualism. Yeah, where the individual is a sovereign unit of value. We want, if you want to create a new political party or build up politics, a true morality, what's going to make you a winner is the propagation of the individualist ideas, this individualist ideology. This is what America was based on. This is what, if it's going to survive, we'll need to get back to these individualist ideas.
I agree with you. It's everybody says this. It's almost overused that it's not left versus right anymore. I say it's pro individual rights versus pro states' rights.
Yeah, yeah. There's no such thing as group rights whatsoever. Yeah? There's only individual rights. Yeah, it's only to the living individual that the concept of value exists. Yeah, so I mean, what promotes and enhances your life is the good. Yeah, and what degrades and threatens your life is the evil. You know? It's as simple as that. It's only to the living individual that this concept of value exists. Yeah, so value being either good or evil. Yeah? That makes sense?
It does, but I think it's mostly because I went through that course. Everyone else has to.
I mean, other people should. Yeah, that's right. We strongly encourage other. It's a bit of a commitment, but I think they'll find it rewarding. Yeah.
A lot of these questions you've covered, but like, what are your views on Christianity? Maybe we could, if there's anything you want to add to that.
Well, I mean, the thing is, I've got a lot of Christian friends, and they're very tolerant. I'm a devout atheist, but I do nothing. I never insult Christianity because of this Aristotelian influence that it has. So I think it's got some merit. Yeah, I respect it somewhat carefully. Yeah, but I totally reject this epistemology of faith. Yeah, I don't have faith in anything. I only have convictions. Yeah, and any and all of my Christian friends, I tell that to them all the time, and they seem to tolerate it, so I can respect that. And also, yeah, altruism, the Christian ethic of altruism, yeah, it basically exists for the sake of everybody else. Yeah, so and that's the heart of Christianity. Yeah, where Jesus sacrifices himself to pay for everybody's sins, and you're sort of expected to emulate that. You have to live to exist for the sake of all others, and that's altruism. And that's pure evil, and that's basically, as an objectivist, I'm trying to disseminate to the world is that we have to get away from altruism and practice rational egoism as summarized by Aristotle. Yeah? So there's that one saying I said, yeah, that the purpose of morality is to teach you not to suffer and die, yeah, as Jesus did, but to enjoy yourself and live, yeah, to understand the world and to act on causes that are likely to create the desired effects, yeah, to promote and to enhance your own life. Now, when everybody in the world is doing this, then everything becomes a lot better for everybody. Yeah, we can't exist by taking taking from others for ourselves, sacrificing other people for ourselves, nor sacrificing ourselves for other people. Yeah? It's absolutely wrong.
I'm going to jump in. Something just clicked for me. When I was a little bit younger, I used to play this video game called BioShock, and it's actually the video game is based on Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged. And the antagonist in that video game, he poses a question to the player, and he says, it's a rhetorical question. He goes, "What is the most vile thing ever perpetrated on humanity?" And he says, "Is it war? Is it slavery, the Holocaust?" And he says, "No, it's the means by which all of this is made possible." And he cites altruism. So you're tying it back to the sacrifice Jesus Christ made. You're basically saying it's a collectivist philosophy, altruism.
It is, yeah. It's what drives collectivism. It's what drives collectivism. Exactly. Yeah. So it's basically an ethic of human sacrifice dressed up as an ethic of kindness, of brotherhood, and benevolence to your fellow man. Yeah. Yeah. It's a total lie. It's completely upside down, completely the opposite of what it appears to be. Yeah. Yeah, and then and the opposite of altruism is rational egoism. Yeah? So this Aristotelian version. That's important to distinguish Aristotle from others because Aristotle had it more or less right, you know, but Ayn Rand perfects it all. She perfects it. You know, what rational egoism actually means. And again, that's a pretty big topic. But you can easily find out about it at the Ayn Rand Institute. But it makes a lot of sense once you go through it all. Yeah.
Gilles, do you want to say anything about this slide or move on?
Yeah. So basically, all this slide does is just summarizes how, or let's say, the prominent Persians and Arabs that brought Aristotelianism into Western Europe. Yeah. So yeah. So I already described how during the medieval times, I don't like to call them Muslims because that's a collectivist idea, but the Arabs and Persians at the time were the advanced cultures. They made a lot of important inventions that we use to this day, things like algebra, magnetic compass, and the number system we use today was all invented by these Arab. Medicine was first invented by the Arabs and Persians, and they were Aristotelians. But sometime around the 11th to 12th century, there was an Arab philosopher, Al-Ghazali was his name. He somehow managed, I don't know all the details, but somehow he managed to switch everybody off from Aristotle, and it became a pure Platonic dogma, yeah, of Islam. And they basically stupefied themselves back into the Stone Age. Yeah, and so, and especially today, there's starting to be more and more secularized Arabs, yeah, or Muslims, I should say. Uh, I lived in Malaysia for a long time, and I had a boss. He was a devout Muslim, but man, this guy, he was really intelligent, really smart guy. And so he's becoming more secularized. Yeah, so the more and more secularized Muslims we get, the better things are going to be for everybody. Yeah? And we sort of have to move away from this tribalism, but we got to can't be afraid of insulting stupid religion. Islam is definitely a stupid religion, just like the greenhouse effect is a stupid religion. And it's likewise with early Christianity and early Judaism. It was very stupid religion as well.
I was born in the Middle East, but I don't know anything about Islam. What 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 would be your main criticism of Islam?
Well, basically that it's unmoored from reality, totally unmoored from reality. Yeah, then in terms of epistemology, it's all on faith, on the mullahs and the clerics. Very little reference to reality, as far as I can tell. And then especially in the ethics, I mean, women are nothing, children are nothing. Um, yeah, people are nothing. Yeah, everything is groups and tribes. Yeah, you get the Sunnis and what's the other ones?
Shia?
Shia, Sunnis and Shia. Yeah, and all the various tribes conflicting, and if they're not conflicting with other themselves, or conflicting with others. So it's. I'm not an expert in Sharia in Muslim law, but that's the main problem. Is it's disconnect. It's they have to restore Aristotle, yeah. And the sad thing is that it was Arabs and Persians that just rediscovered Aristotle after he was lost for like 4 or 5 centuries. Yeah? And it was these Arabs and Persians that figured out how to translate ancient Greek into Arabic, and the bits and pieces that they did recover from Aristotle weren't complete. Yeah, so there was a huge heavy lift. Yeah, and they did some extremely important work. Yeah, that basically saved the world. I would say they're early Arabs and Persians, the early Muslims. But so I mean that's something we sort of need to, I think, disseminate to the rest of this. This is a path forward for everybody to recognize. This is what these Middle Easterners did. You have to rediscover Aristotle after he was lost for many centuries. And it's these Aristotelian doctrines, yeah, that make life on Earth uh, bearable or viable, or worthwhile.
Very well. Shall we move on?
Sure.
Uh, you pretty much answered most of these questions, but what are your views on Christianity versus Islam? I'm just going. I don't know if there's anything more to add here, but basically, there was good and bad in both.
Yeah, both good and bad. And that's the challenge that we all have. That everything is mixed. Everything is mixed. Between there's certain significant degrees of reasoning in the West. But there's a growing degree of mysticism in the West. Yeah. Um, and yeah, and we have to cope with these. So we sort of have the cancer upon healthy on a healthy body, and we sort of have to be wise to not throw away the baby out with the bathwater. You have to cut away healthy tissue along with the diseased tissue, and then that's the challenge that we all face. Every living human being that still has a mind of his own is a value. Someone who's got hopes and dreams of his own, yeah? And we have to propagate ideas that protect people that are likely to be able to respect the rights of others, regardless of the race, religion, color, sexual orientation. We have to get rid of tribalism and promote radical individualism.
Individualism. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, let me read a quote from Plato. I after the 50-hour session, I really started to hate this guy. He says, education must be thoroughly controlled by the state. We must have a thoroughgoing censorship of literature, music, philosophy, and science. I might be quoting Justin Trudeau here, but was Plato a communist? I think the answer is yes.
Yeah, he was the father. He's essentially the father of modern collectivism. I prefer to use collectivism because there's lots of different faces. Yeah, so I demonstrate how Nazism is essentially communism. And, the net zero religion, another form of communism. Yeah, so it's something that's able to wear all kinds of disguises, but it's essentially the same thing. It all originates from Plato, Plato's dual reality metaphysics. Yeah, that there are basically two universes. Well, where the actual physical universe is less important than the mystical imaginary one.
Yeah, I can't stress that enough. That's one thing that kind of clicked for me when I was way at the beginning of the course. I did Plato versus Aristotle. Aristotle's kind of like, you look around you, if you see a rock, if it's heavy, it's heavy. Like you just accept it. Plato he's just coming up with these convoluted, no. There's another dimension out there of beauty and wisdom, and that dimension knows why the rock is heavy, but
Yeah.
you don't know, but somebody out there knows.
Everything is a shadow from the world of forms. It's not real, basically. And yeah, so when you deprioritize physical reality, then basically anything goes. Huh? You can end up with a flat Earth and cold sun.
All right, moving on. Um, I don't think there's really much here. Yeah, Plato is a bad guy.
I mean, the
This
thing,
one,
well, yeah, the thing about Plato, I hate to call him a bad guy because he originally wasn't. I think he had good intentions, but he made tragic mistakes. As far as I can tell, he never was able to acknowledge them. And his last treatise, Republic, his treatise on politics, reveals that became very corrupted.
it's, can you imagine? You go through your life, you're a failure, you figure you'll die, and it won't matter, and then it turns out you destroy all of human civilization.
Yeah, but imagine the counter. Like Aristotle. In Aristotle's case, he had major achievements in his life. He educated Alexander the Great, and Alexander the Great basically conquered the Persian Empire. Yeah, yeah, and then he had a huge. I mean, he was huge. He didn't have a long life. Yeah, he was maybe a little bit brash and ended his life sooner than he did. But, yeah, and Aristotle was his teacher, and they both died roughly at the same time. And Greece sort of fell shortly afterwards, in the rise of the Roman Empire. And and Aristotle's ideas disappeared, but Plato's flourished. With the Neoplatonism and the creation of Christianity and Islam, all of this stuff.
Sorry, Gilles, before continuing, did the Roman Republic not incorporate Aristotelian values?
Yeah, well, they did. Well, yeah, the original idea of the separation of powers originates from Aristotle. Yeah, and the early Romans were they had great relations with the Greeks. They liked the Greeks and their ideas. All kinds of Greek stuff here, with the Greek gods. And a lot of the writing, the alphabet was largely Greek as well. There were very close relations with Greece, close and friendly relationships with Greece.
Thanks, Gilles. This slide is actually, I had a question about this. So you said America's first pilgrims escaping the theocratic feudalism of Europe, an earlier form of communism, only had the Bible to guide them in the New World.
Yeah.
Their guidance into communism nearly caused them to starve to death centuries before Karl Marx was born. Can you explain that?
Yeah. So basically, with the first pilgrims that arrived in 1619, they basically chose to develop their properties as a commune, where everybody shared the work, shared the living spaces. And basically, it was 17th century communism. Yeah, but basically, essentially as the Bible directs. Yeah, where nobody owns anything, everything is shared. Yeah, and it failed terribly. Failed very terribly. Yeah, they nearly starved themselves to death. Yeah, and then I'll post an article that explains it in a lot more detail. And it wasn't until they started assigning property to people that people started working harder for themselves because they're working for themselves for their own good rather than for the good of everybody else. They work for their own selves. Yeah, people became a lot more motivated, and they started working harder and innovating better ways of doing things to build things, and things flourished. That created the Thanksgiving holiday. That's basically the long and short of it. Yeah, because these people came from Europe. They had a mindset that was ingrained by tradition. And when they tried to apply it in the New World, it nearly killed them.
This is fascinating because the way I imagined it, I thought the moment they got off the Mayflower, everything was working and everything led towards 1776.
No, not at all. Not at all. It was terrible. They nearly died. They nearly starved themselves to death.
All right, moving on. Question number 6. Again, you've pretty much answered this, but how does climate hysteria tie into this philosophy? And this is the Aristotle's identity on the right there. What is, what is not, is not.
Yeah, so it's basically a rejection of the law of identity. And I didn't include a slide here, but it's pretty easy to show why the greenhouse effect is a religious dogma. It's not science at all.
There's an accompanying slide. I just picked this line up from one of your previous slides.
Yeah.
By declaring the production and joy to be sins, then collecting blackmail from the CO2 spouting disease carrying sinners.
Yeah, that's basically it. Yeah. Yeah, you will own no property and you will be happy. And it all comes from this. Yeah, and it's sort of this that existed for nearly 18th century up until America's Revolution. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
What about any of these? So climate change, this is violation of the law of identity. Like I'm noticing the housing crisis, they're blaming that on boomers. Grocery prices, they're blaming it on price gouging CEOs.
This gets into the topic of sophistry. Yeah. So sophistry is a type of lies using half truths. Yeah. So part of the blame is there, but it's not actually that way. So sophistry is a big long topic. And Joe Potsman goes into this a lot. Sophistry originates from ancient Greece, and it's a very deep corruption, and it's something that we're deeply vulnerable to, especially now with the internet, where we can be, you get all kinds of BS coming to you now. It seems that it's true, and you sort of believe it, and then you sort of build a worldview, and it becomes reinforced. So all of this stuff is because of too much government, long and short of it. And now you have these very highly paid experts, very intelligent people, but they're dishonest. They're violating the law of identity. They're creating bullshit. And they're very good at it. It's indoctrinating nearly everybody. But now, but in a way, I'm kind of optimistic because you're seeing a lot more desperation. Now they want to censor the internet. They want to control what you see, what you post on. And that's a big sign of desperation. Whatever they're trying to do, it's not working. And I think if they try to act it that way, that people are going to start getting a lot more rebellious. Yeah. So all of those things, all caused by housing crisis, grocery prices, Kamloops, all of this is caused by government and their effing bureaucrats. I really want to use the expletive there. But these sophists, they're totally evil people. They exist upon human sacrifice, on government welfare or government grants or government contracts. They don't have to produce any value. It's like these GC strategies and the Arrive scam. They can, 10-tuple of the cost of something, and there's no accountability. Totally evil people living upon human sacrifice. They're all parasites. I'm having trouble controlling my language.
No. Keep going.
Yeah. I think the worst insult of all of them, though, is this Kamloops residential school. Yeah. So basically, they're accusing Canadians of being mass murdering genocidal maniacs, essentially. They're basically accusing normal Canadians for what they themselves are. And that's the worst.
I picked up on that too. So putting aside whether you believe there was a genocide there or there wasn't, the governments, they caused, if it's true, they caused the genocide. They're turning around the people. They're like, you caused this.
Yes. Basically they're trying to blame, and of course, they're trying to blame it on the Catholic Church, which is absolutely ridiculous. I don't think the Catholic Church is a bunch of angels, but I think the vast majority of people, that were in the church were, basically they were good, honest people trying to do the right thing. There's probably going to be some examples, some instances of some kind of wrongdoing somewhere, but yeah, but to murder hundreds of children, it's absolutely freaking insane. And to make this major news headline without any evidence whatsoever, just made up evidence from ground radar, it's just absolutely ridiculous. This is the worst insult of all. Yeah? Absolutely, I'm gonna go. I'd go to physical war because of this. I think that's absolutely terrible. The worst possible insult. Yeah, it's basically what it is to demoralize Canadians, yeah, to hate themselves and to become more obedient sheep. I really hope someday we somehow get some retribution of some kind for this in particular.
Well, let's hope so.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, you, I didn't ask you about this as you were talking, but you've told me in private that Aristotle's ethics was lacking and objectivism fixed that.
yeah.
Can you tell us what is objectivism and how did it fix it?
Yeah, also, objectivism is the philosophy of Ayn Rand. Yeah, so in the way that she characterizes it, it's a philosophy for living life on Earth. It's very similar to Aristotle, but it's got some very important distinctions. For one, it's complete. There's no contradictions. There's no errors that anybody knows of, and it basically it's a reaffirmation of Aristotle's law of identity that physical reality is what really matters. Yeah, and as well as our mind, yeah, our conceptual ability. But concepts can only be validated by proper correspondence with physical reality. And so physical reality is at the core of objectivism. And then it goes outward, yeah, with epistemology, the method of knowledge, and then ethics, yeah, with what morality is, what we ought to be doing to promote human flourishing. And then politics, yeah, which basically is about individualism, yeah, that capitalism requires, yeah, or let's say right. I like to use the word rightism requires. And then the last, and probably it's very important, yeah, the culture, yeah. So basically, our art, our music, our entertainment, that's our soul fuel. Yeah, that's how we re-energize ourselves to cope with the real world. Yeah? We have to live in this real world, as terrible as it can be sometimes. We have to get all the soul fuel that we can possibly get.
All right. I'm not going to go through this again. I just like to point out, I love the phrasing, totalitarian death cult.
Yeah, well, I mean that's basically what we're confronting. Yeah, and it's not, and that's a big criticism I have against George Orwell because George Orwell made the dystopia something absolutely terrible, and you should be absolutely terrified about it. But that's where he went completely wrong. Actually, it's the opposite. When you come across something dangerous, you,
Sorry, are you still there?
yeah, I'm still there. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is a very dangerous thing, but you don't just freeze in fear when something dangerous is coming at you. Yeah. You have to act in a certain way. And, so all of this whole topic we're talking about tonight is about method of thought. Yeah. And it's this method of thought that is the bazooka that destroys this totalitarianism. It's merely a matter of disseminating it to everybody in the world. So on this chart here, I like this one. It's my creation. Basically, what I try to show here in both red and black, let's say black and red, is a philosophy that English Enlightenment philosophers had as long as the American fathers. Yeah? So what's written in black, the Aristotelian reason. And then shown in red is the Neoplatonic mysticism. Yeah? So basically, essentially good and evil in all of the branches of philosophy. And this is something that each of us have total control of. We can change. If there's something in our way of thinking in either of these topics, yeah, we can choose to change that for ourselves. We change things for the better by changing our own selves. And that's basically my message for tonight. Now, we each have a philosophy of our own, I try to outline good and evil philosophy on this one slide, and people can choose to see whether or not they should rethink some of the manners in which they think about things, yeah, in terms of the nature of the universe. How do you know it? What should you do, yeah, in terms of morality? What and then politics and aesthetics. Yeah, the politics and aesthetics, they're important, but they're just after effects of these first three things, yeah, which are far more important. Yeah, the metaphysics, especially epistemology and
I love this slide. I probably should have put this as the first slide because I asked you like 10 times what epistemology is. It's right there.
yeah, but I managed to essentialize it there, but it's a pretty big topic. There's lots to learn in epistemology. It's a much more interesting topic than I thought it would be. But also, the ethics is really important, but it's fairly straightforward. Yeah? But it's really important that we get away from altruism, this idea that we exist for the sake of all others. And we have to reverse this welfare statism that we're enduring right now, and get and define the moral ideal of, let's say, fair capitalist society, yeah, where the government exists only to protect individual rights and it's financed by voluntary means only. And basically, we're free to do whatever we want as long as we respect the individual rights of all other people. Yeah? We don't try to steal from them. We don't try to rip them off. We don't try to put them in any danger. Yeah, we all do our own thing, and we help and we serve each other by producing values and trading with one another, yeah, under voluntary and thus mutually beneficial terms. And that's how human societies flourish, and that's proven by 1776 America, by 19th century America.
I love how you phrase that. Yes. Government by voluntary action only.
Yeah, well, I mean, just think, you buy insurance. Surely you buy insurance, or you buy things to protect yourself. Or, you pay money for all kinds of things, for a burglar alarm in your house or in your car. So I mean, when you're getting a value for something, you're willing to pay for it, yeah, because you're exchanging value, and you can do the same thing can exist for a government as well too. If you have a proper government that exists to protect individual rights, yeah, people will, yeah, naturally want to be able to finance it, yeah, because they need it. They value their life, their liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Yeah, it's as simple as that.
Well, I'm going to have to ask you because somebody out there is going to call you a crazy kook, unhinged libertarian. So the argument would be, all right, if it's voluntary, who's going to pay for the roads, Jill?
Well, I
What's your
mean,
response?
if you use the road, yeah, if the road is of value to you, you're going to pay for the road. You pay your share of the road. Yeah. So I mean, here in Italy, they've got toll roads all over the place where you pay, you use the road. Yeah, and it works. And those are the best roads in the country. The public roads, the roads that are managed by the public sector, the total crap. Yeah.
Good answer. Gilles, I think the next one is the last slide, and it's my favorite one because it's a picture.
Yeah. So I mean, in this slide, I want to emphasize the importance of property rights. Yeah. And so property rights don't exist in Canada's charter. I'm not sure if they're actually very explicit in the American Bill of Rights either. But, but basically, property rights is how your right to life, yeah, you live in this real world, are implemented. So if you don't have property rights, yeah, then you become a slave. And that's essentially what we're experiencing right now with the incredible amounts of taxation and inflation. Inflation is another type of taxation. And basically, your property rights are being taken away, and we're all becoming slaves, essentially. And so, without property rights, there are no rights. A disposable unit, basically. So, this is a key message for and it is this concept here that is likely to cure poverty everywhere in the whole world. Yeah. Very nearly accomplished it the first time, and it can do the same thing again, providing you get this message out. That the right to property is how the right to your life is implemented. Absolutely essential.
All right.
Yeah,
We're finally at the end.
we're finally at the end. Oh, good. Well, that went by pretty quick, actually, for me.
Yeah. You did a great job.
I really
I'm
appreciate
gonna
it.
stop sharing and I can actually see you. I'm not looking at a series of slides. Well, we'll poll the audience. We'll see how many people actually died because of a PowerPoint presentation.
I hope I got the essential idea out. Yeah, it's not complicated. It's a bit well, it's deep, but it's not very complicated. It just needs to get across somehow.
No, I think you did a really good job, and you know my. So I found you on Twitter, and some of the comments you made, I'm like, I got to get this guy on. He's brilliant. But what I really love about what you did is you took a concept like philosophy and you kind of weaved it into the Canadian everyday problems. So thank you.
Yeah, well, that's basically as objective as what we try to do. Yeah, we're trying to spread a new philosophy, brand new. It's
All right.
revolutionary. It's revolutionary, and then by a revolutionary, I mean by American revolutionary scale. Yeah, it's a big, really, I think we can get this through. And I mean, the way things are going, it seems like it's going to become more and more relevant. And the more people that are aware of these, yeah, the better they're going to react to what might come upon us. Yeah, because the fear porn is off the scales, yeah, and we just sort of have to laugh and ridicule that. It's all bullshit.
Um, Mr. Bourgeois, usually I ask people um, to suggest ways that Canadians can stand up, but you've pretty much done that. You've said educate yourself and don't panic. So my question is there anywhere that people can follow you? Is there a website or anything you'd like they can
I
donate
don't
to?
have a website. I just have my Twitter account. Yeah, so Gillis and Peel at twitter.com, I think. Yeah, but I'm also they don't like me very much at Twitter. Yeah, they hound me. Yeah, yesterday I was suspended for 12 hours, but for no reason. I had no have no understanding why. You know, I mostly I mostly criticize the flat Earth, cold sun religion. You know, like the very dissonant greenhouse effect is that. And that might be upsetting some people, I guess. Other than that, yeah, I don't know why. And I'm also shadow banned a lot, so you might see Gilles and Fia or La Bourgeoisie, yeah, which is my name, La Bourgeoisie, and whatever I have pasted will be hidden because it's considered sensitive. Yeah, it happens to me a lot. Yeah, and I don't post stuff that's sensitive. Yeah, I post facts. I post science. I post illustrations why the greenhouse effect is a flat Earth, cold sun religion and stuff like that. So yeah, it's kind of a tough life. Yeah, I've been canned from Twitter for 4 years. LinkedIn was very important to me. I got canned from that. Yeah, so-called climate denier. In Facebook, I was getting suspended. I could hardly make any posts, so I decided to completely my Facebook account. Completely. So it's yeah. Much rather be drilling oil wells and building offshore platforms and compressor stations.
Oh no, now you're going to get me banned off of Twitter. Supporting the oil industry is a big no-no. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Gilles. We'll end it there. Again, I'm. Thank you very much for coming on. I very much appreciate your time.
Era and piacere.
uh,
Pleasure.
Ciao, Bella. See you later. Bye.
Okay, bye.